The race to replace Congressman Jerrold Nadler and the World Cup. Will it be an economic boom for the city or a bust? The Point starts right now. Assemblyman Alex Boris has a master's degree in computer science. So why are so many tech titans trying to stop his campaign for Congress? So I ask you this question: why are the tech titans after you?
Well, it's not because I have crazy ideas about AI. It's because I actually win. Last year, I passed a bill called the RAISE Act, the strongest AI safety law in the country. And I did that after Donald Trump issued an executive order trying to punish states for regulating AI, targeting my bill, the RAISE Act, along with ones throughout the country. But I didn't back down. We got it passed with bipartisan majorities. I got the governor to sign it. And it's the only bill in the country targeted by that executive order that's been passed since it came into effect. They don't want someone in Congress that knows how to beat them.
But we need to tell people what the RAISE Act does and the safety precautions that it has for people.
Absolutely. AI is a big topic, and there's a lot to do. And the RAISE Act was just one small piece of it, but it was focused on catastrophic risks, on things that can go really wrong with AI, helping to build a bioweapon, losing control of artificial intelligence.
And what about kids?
And kids is I think, the one place of bipartisan agreement we can come together on, but we need to do at the national level some of what we've done in New York about regulating chatbots already and hopefully pushing that a lot further.
But you know, I was reading a poll today that showed that people are really focusing on AI, and they're worried about a lot of things. They're worried about surveillance. They're worried about job loss. They're also worried about deep fakes, where you can fake people out and make them people say things that they don't say.
Yeah.
So what can you do about that?
One of my hot takes on AI is actually that deep fakes are an incredibly solvable problem. We just have to do it. So
how do you solve it?
Well,
anybody could take a picture of you and put any kind of words in your mouth. They could use your voice, and it would seem like you're saying it, and you could say anything.
There is a free, open source, industry-created technology, actually, called C2PA, that, if attached to any piece of content, can prove whether it was taken from a real device or generated by AI.
Even if it sounds exactly like you?
Absolutely. The only problem is no one's using it.
And is it expensive?
It's absolutely free. And already works with every.
Use it?
Well, you need policymakers that know about it, that will encourage devices to actually come with that as the default. If we set that up, we could solve the problem of deepfakes. So you're saying it has
to be in every phone, every computer, every.
And not required that it always has to be turned on, just the default option. And if that happens, 95% of the content will be marked in this way, and then anything that isn't, you'll be immediately suspect of.
What about people who are afraid that they're going to take their jobs?
It's a real concern. I mean, this is the first technology ever in which the people who are building it have said their goal is to build something that can replace all human labor. It doesn't mean they'll succeed, but it means we have to take it seriously. And so I've put forward proposals to shift the tax codes, because right now we incentivize laying off people in order to invest in AI. We need to change those incentives. I've also talked about an AI dividend, a proposal where we can all benefit from any of the wealth that's created by AI by taxing it.
But you see, I think that people are also concerned about, computers doing all kinds of things, like teaching in a classroom, or things like that, that they don't want to see that happen, that they think that humans actually have to do that.
Yeah, I'm a new parent. I have a 9-month-old at home. We're just starting to think about preschool, because you have to do that this early in New York. But I hear from parents of kindergartners, of first graders, where AI is being introduced into the classroom, and they are learning from an iPad. And there might be some future where AI can supplement what you learn from a teacher, but we shouldn't be handing off the job of teaching our kids to screens. And this is something that we need people in office that are actually really thinking about the implications of the privacy for their kids, of the long-term learning of their kids, and aren't willing to just be blown away and whizzed by all of the AI that's out there.
I have one more question. I think it's a big one for people in New York, especially with electric prices going up so high, and that's the environmental concerns, because a lot of these things use an awful lot of energy.
So much power, and we need to require that they are bringing their own green energy in anything that they build.
How do you do that? Where do you find the power?
Well, you require them to build solar and wind and things that are net new.
Those are things that the present president doesn't really support. He's not into wind power.
That's true, and that's why we need a Congress that's willing to stand up to him.
And so now we're going to talk about your campaign for Congress. So let's take a look. Michael Lasher has Michael Bloomberg. Jack Schlossberg has Nancy Pelosi and the Kennedy family. George Conway has the fact that he's opposed Donald Trump. How does a man like you go up against all these other people who are not running but are clearly part of the campaign?
Yeah, I have my record and I have the people. I'm proud to be ranked by the Center for Effective Lawmaking as the most effective new legislator. 32. We keep adding to them.
I lost count.
But they're things that just made life easier. We cut junk fees. We lowered the cost of healthcare. We expanded healthcare. I made it so that anyone could cancel a subscription the same way they signed up. I made our trials faster. These are all my bills that I pushed forward. That effectiveness is what this district is looking for. But second of all, I've been the choice of working people. I've been endorsed by the state AFL-CIO, the Federation of Labor Unions. I have 10 unions on my side. I think the rest of the field has 2. The people that make New York City run day in and day out, work here, live here, they're with me.
But you know, there was a poll done by AARP, which says that they think that older New Yorkers, baby boomers, are going to be the deciding factor in this race, not younger voters. Do you think that's true? And is that what do you say to those people? How do you appeal to the older voter?
Yeah, I mean, again, I talk about my record and talk about standing up for them. The Social Security COLA this year was far too small, and most of it was eaten up by Medicare Part B increases in premiums. I talk to them about how we can actually shift our payroll taxes so that the trust fund doesn't run out and we can protect it. I talk about my investments in naturally occurring retirement communities and encouraging tax breaks for buildings that provide services so that seniors can age in place. My favorite stops to make in the district are the senior centers, and having real conversations about safety on the streets and about being able to live and having their family close to them. I mean, it's an extremely important voice and constituency.
But you know, a lot of people ask this question, given the dysfunction in Washington and the inability of people to get along or to change their views, how does somebody from New York make a difference given the dysfunction and the fact that there's a lot of tension in Washington?
It's not easy, but you always try and you always show up. And it's something that I've done in Albany. The 32 bills I've passed, every single one has gotten at least one Republican vote. Not because that was a rule. I put forward gun bills, I put forward a gender identity bill. I didn't expect to get Republican votes, but I always had the conversation. I'd reach out to the ranking member, I'd reach out to the floor leader.
Do you think you can actually do that in Washington?
It's a lot harder. I'm not going to say it's apples to apples, but yes, I think you can build trust over time.
So what's your #1 priority? Should you get elected, what would be the first thing that you want to do?
Oh, the cost of living crisis is real. We need to expand housing. We need to have Medicare for all and real health care coverage. We need to invest in childcare. That has to be Democrats' priority nationwide. We also need to make government actually work for people and restore trust in government. We need to ban Congress members from trading stocks. We need to have the DOJ separate from the president. But these are things every Democrat is saying. I am aligned. Those are the first things. But you still have a Republican.
If you were to get elected and you went to Washington, there would be a Republican in the White House.
There would. And maybe housing is one of the places we can work together. It seems like his investment in Sunnyside Yards, we can say that if we're building more housing, that benefits everyone. I'll work with absolutely anyone if it'll benefit New Yorkers. But I'll also stand up to anyone who's coming for us.
So you're saying housing is your #1 priority, or are you going to try to prioritize the high cost of drugs, the Medicaid money, et cetera?
All of that is part of the cost of living. I mean, expanding out the government's ability, Medicare's ability to negotiate drugs is something Biden started and Trump has built on. We should do it even more.
How do you feel about arms sales for Israel?
Well, Israel is a very important ally to the U.S. Arms sales to them, like to any ally, is already subject to Leahy law vetting, and that is a process that should continue. That's the State Department looks at any aid that we are giving, any sales that go forward, and there are places where we can strengthen that process. I talk about the Safeguard Act on my website, but I'm always suspect of bills that are targeting one specific country.
No, because there are people who say that because of what's going on in the Middle East, that we should give them defensive weapons, not offensive weapons. I wonder what your position is.
I think that's a political talking point more than that is. When you talk to people in the military, making that distinction isn't one that...
Well, I mean, the distinction is you could give them Iron Dome, which allows them to shoot missiles coming in, but not necessarily the bombs to go out.
Yeah. No, these are going to be tough ongoing conversations.
What's your position
well,
on it?
Netanyahu himself said it's time to wind down U.S. aid to Israel. These will be ongoing conversations with an ally. I think that we should have strong Leahy law vetting for any of the aid that we give to Israel, to Saudi Arabia, to anyone, and take seriously any of the claims that we are seeing and the real reality on the ground that we are seeing.
We have about 30 seconds left. On Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state? Yes, no?
Unquestionable. It should be a safe, Jewish, democratic state.
Should there be a two-state solution?
Absolutely. It's the only way to establish peace in the region.
We're going to have to leave it right there for now. But up next, the economics of the World Cup. We'll be right back. I am joined now by Manhattan Councilwoman Virginia Maloney, and I've got to talk to you about the World Cup and whether or not we think that this is going to be a bonanza for New York City or a bust for New York City.
That is a great question. First off, thank you for having me. In my capacity as the chair of the Economic Development Committee, we've spent a lot of time looking at the World Cup and what economic impact we can expect from the projected 1.2 million people who will be here this summer.
Do you think there's actually going to be 1.2 million people?
That's latest data from the host committee still projects 1.2 and 3.3 billion in economic activity spread across both New York and New Jersey. One of the concerns is that the hotel bookings have not kept up to speed with those projections.
Right. That was where I was going.
Exactly. So I think the last data point I saw was roughly 8% down from last year this time to this year. Which is concerning. But the good news is that many people haven't discovered whether or not their teams are going to be in the finals. So we
so you
think that
that's delaying people coming?
I think so. And there is also no avoiding some of the geopolitical issues and the other headwinds at stake.
What about the war, but also the fact that people
fuel
are
prices,
fuel prices, visas.
Exactly.
So what are the factors that you think that could prevent this from being the economic bonanza that the city was expecting?
I think those are all things that could dampen attendance, but we're hearing from the host committee that ticket prices are still being sold, and there's also just the broader economic impact outside of the stadium, and that's what City Hall has really been focused on, is bringing the festivities of the World Cup to the people who can't afford to actually be in the stadium watching the games.
Well, so here's the question in that. So I know that the city is going to have events in all the boroughs. I know that the governor is going to have events in the suburbs. Okay, but given the fact of all the other things you've talked about, from visas, the war, gas prices, everything, how do we know that people who can't afford to get tickets to go to the actual games are going to come here to celebrate what's going on and participate in this? Or is it just going to be people who already live in the area?
We don't know yet what exactly will happen, but even that celebratory spirit will spill over into our bars and restaurants, and we're putting together a cultural events map and highlighting businesses and events that are happening in communities across all 5 boroughs, outside of just the 5 fan festivals that the Mondami administration announced. And the hope is that all of that will contribute towards a broader economic impact. But another thing I'd point out, too, is that we are a little concerned about displacing the already active summer that we already have.
That was where I was about to go to. The mayor decided to pause any permits in parks, fairs, festivals, etc. So what about these community groups? I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen in the city over the course of the summer: NYCHA, family gatherings, fairs, various community events. If those are paused and those permits aren't issued, doesn't that affect the economic health of the city as well?
Absolutely. The city is going to keep grinding away as it usually does, and we need to make sure that the typical summer programming will be approved, whether it's a yoga class or the dog run, and there has been a delay in those permits being issued. I spoke to the administration yesterday and was assured that those permits are moving along and we're getting unstuck. I worked with a few of my council member colleagues to voice the concerns that we've been hearing from the community, particularly business improvement districts that were pointing out exactly this issue and are working to get those permits approved, while also acknowledging that there is going to be an additional strain on our NYPD resources to deal with this influx of people. The council and the city administration has already put 30 or so million towards NYPD over the course of the summer to address the increased security costs. But you point out a risk for sure that we want to make sure that the normal economic hub isn't replaced due to concerns around the CUP.
So the reason I was asking the question is it has to do with the cops, but also perennially in terms of the budget, the council has been concerned about police overtime.
Yeah.
And the reason why the mayor wanted to delay the permits was not to stretch the NYPD too thin. So is it counterproductive for the council on the one hand to try to reduce NYPD overtime, at the same time it says we have to spend more on NYPD overtime in order to deal with the weeks that the World Cup is going on?
Yeah, there should be supplemental resources that were already allocated in the budget to pay for additional security resources. And I'd also note that a lot of the magic of the Cup is not going to be an official FIFA permit or an official event. It's going to be your local bar streaming the Cup, having the decorations and embracing the energy that's going to be in the city. And Governor Hochul has also made it easier for those businesses to get permits in one go rather than having to each individual day request these permits. So that should help with some of the natural vibrancy that we should see in our streets.
The reason I asked the question is because the controller, Mark Levine, said that he didn't think that we would meet the estimate of making $70 million in revenue. That would probably be 55 million or 50 million. I mean, it's a big number, but it falls short of what they were expecting. Do you think that he's being unduly pessimistic, or that what's going on in the world is going to, depress the economic benefits?
We certainly can't ignore the broader economic impact in the city, and I think it's why it is so important to have a forward-thinking strategy about how New York is going to differentiate itself from the administration. New York City is New York City. We're not, we need to make sure that people know it is safe to come here and that they still want to make that effort, whether it's domestic travel, Canada, and international. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm excited about Sail Forth as well and America 250, which should be things that attract domestic audiences to come to New York.
What about the issue of short-term rentals? Is that something that maybe should be encouraged to get more people to come here? We have about 30 seconds left.
I think that we certainly have plenty of hotel capacity still available, and I don't think that is really what is putting people off from coming. My hope is that as soon as we know which teams are actually playing, we're going to have some of the best matches in the Cup. So my hope is that once we know which countries are represented, that we'll see that rise in tourism.
We'll have to leave it right there for now, but our conversations continue right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. Thank you for joining me. Now, there's a new term of art in the world of shopping. It's called surveillance pricing, and it means that companies can sort of spy on your personal data to charge you more than someone else. Now, how do New Yorkers feel about that? Well, they're weighing in on your point. Should you have to pay the same price as everybody else?
Yes.
Everybody should pay, whatever it costs, it's what it should cost.
Everybody pay the same price? So sure, of course.
Well, they should. It's not fair because sometimes it's more expensive when you buy it in New York than it is elsewhere.
It shouldn't vary because you're rich or I'm poor. It is what it is.
What do you think about companies that use your data to set special prices just for you?
No good.
I think that's
obnoxious and shouldn't be done.
Terrible, and they do it without telling you, and they sell it all the time.
I feel like that's not really fair.
I think it's kind of like a little violation, no?
It's another example of us giving up our freedom to corporations.
That's where cybersecurity has to play a role and control our personal information and not just spread it around.
But what if they were to give you a discount? Would that be okay?
I mean, it's like devil's advocate, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but no.
Yes, very, very much appreciated. Any discounts?
Depends on the discount. No, I think it's a harmful thing for society that they should have access to that data.
No, I don't care about the discount. I don't want them to know who I am.
I just feel like people should be able to either apply for some type of discount or something like that versus them just
I'd be pissed if someone else had a discount and I didn't.
It'd be nice, but it's not the right. You shouldn't have to pay more than I because I have green eyes and you don't. Do you? No, you do. So we get the same deal.
Should company be allowed to use your personal data to set prices?
Not really.
No, it should be even all across the board.
No, I don't think they should use my personal data for anything.
Not to set prices. If they want to target and sell me something, market things to me, that's fine. But they shouldn't change prices.
Data mining is a problem. No, absolutely not. I understand the point of it, and I'm sure it helps corporate research, but the very idea that you'd adjust prices based on my economic situation and yours seems preternaturally unfair.
Surveillance pricing. Should the government do something about it?
Sure.
Yes, they should. Yes, they should.
I think the government should just regulate a lot of things.
This government? I don't think the government should be involved. I'm in favor of each company having its own policies. I'm a capitalist all the way.
I don't know what, and I don't think in this administration they're going to do anything. They probably welcome it in this administration.
I believe in democracy. There should be fairness across the board. I think that if you can sell a product at a discount and make money, then it shouldn't cost that much to start with.